Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Six Elemental Interviews. I don't know if this is the late night edition. For those of you on the East Coast, it's like 9 o'clock. So, welcome wherever you are, whatever part of the world you are. But, my guest, Timothy Wolf, is certainly worth staying up for late for, if that's what you're doing, or getting up early for. He is a brilliant author. He is someone who is beloved in the community. I have recently read, and I'm sorry, you got to forgive me, I gotta rock the old school cover first
Yeah.
because I still love it. Planet into the Darkness, I still love it. So
I do love the original cover, and I didn't do a new cover because I didn't like the old one. I just figured if I was doing like a relaunch, it should just do a full relaunch.
yeah,
Like the new
well,
version that has new everything, new editing, new writing. It's a whole upgraded thing.
I can tell you, you were so kind, dude. I'm just so blown away. Like I thought you were sending me the hardcover of the first book, and I opened the box. I'm like, all three are there, and this is
Yeah.
just like, I mean, talk about an amazing human. Like I was expecting that. Thank you so much. It made my day.
I'm glad.
Um,
Listen, I honestly I don't even care if you ever read them. It's just cool to have them on your shelf.
Dude, I'm gonna read them.
I know.
I love the first book. So this is the beautiful revised new age cover for Planet Big Darkness. It is
Yes.
phenomenal. And Timothy's got it there too. It is just awesome. And gotta show off the rest, man. Book two, Tales of the Maelstrom, which I will definitely be reading this year as well. Like I said, this is a series that I'm really into, that I'm really loving. And finally, Age of Arrogance. When I saw this, I'm like, oh yeah, it's going down. It's going down by the time we get to this point. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm loving this experience. Congratulations on the,
Thank
and
you.
I'll get the pronunciation wrong. SPINCS, is that SP?
Uh, yeah. I just it's easy. Everyone just calls it Baby Bow.
Baby Bow.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so
Spiff Bow is the big one, and Baby Bow is for the little books.
yeah, so the novella, Timothy is, congratulations, a finalist
Thank you.
in the self-published science fiction novella. I call the novella blog
That
off.
works. I mean, yeah.
But what that means is that you're a brilliant author, and we all know that. Congratulations again for that. How does it feel to be in the finals?
um, it's definitely a pleasant surprise because I want to say I think I'm qualified to say this since I'm a finalist. I honestly think it's like 90% luck because if you don't have the right judge doesn't like your book, you're going in the first round. So I mean, it's very a lot of things have to go your way, or you're going to be out quickly. You know?
Well, you're too humble, man. There is, and while I'll acknowledge this element of chance, at the same time, the cream tends to rise to the crop, to the tops, right? So clearly, the book is amazing. I can't wait to read that as well. Your whole backlist is something I'm going to be getting to.
Yeah.
So and I want to get in depth about your whole series, of course, and everything to do with Bulum and your universe. But what's the origins of Timothy Wolf, author? How did you get started? What got you into this? Why did you decide to go indie?
Yeah.
What? How did it all begin?
That would go all the way back to COVID. So basically, I always had the idea for the Legacy of Ballum in my head, and I always thought of it as like a video game. And you probably gather that when you read the first book, because there's just a lot of like MMORPG aspects. There's a tank, there's a healer, there's DPS, range DPS. But I was like, I don't have any skills. I have no idea how to make a video game. So I kind of I was actually going through a divorce at the time of COVID, and
Sorry to hear that.
that sucks because like it was quarantine, so you just gotta we're just sitting there in like a two-bedroom apartment, divorced, trying to figure things out. So I thought the best thing to do was just to drink lots of scotch and try to write a book. And what was awesome about that was like I would write like 15 pages a day, and it was pure garbage, just like the worst of the worst. But I didn't care. I loved it. It was like I was doing something. So like I had my head somewhere else, and I was just focusing on writing about lizard people.
Dude, that's an awesome story. Obviously, I'm sorry to hear about the divorce. However,
Oh, it's
the
okay. I mean,
you
time moves on.
you turn that into something so productive and so meaningful. So certainly there was a silver lining, if there can be one,
Yeah.
when something that happens. So that is absolutely incredible. I just want to go quick shout out to the awesome Eddie Castro. Eddie, thanks for coming
Oh,
up,
it is here.
brother. Yep,
I
great
can't
member of the
see the
community.
chat. I'm afraid
Oh,
that whatever. I could just. Um,
should be there
I'll just
somewhere.
take your word for it.
No,
Eddie's
Eddie
good
is
people.
there. He's good people. He's amazing. Great, very discerning
Yeah.
reader. Fast member of the community. Great fan of Wars of Light and Shadow. Jenny Wirtz as well.
Yeah.
So thanks, Eddie, for coming by. It's always a pleasure to see you in the chat, my
He's been
friend.
really good to me. I want to shout him out because he's read my full trilogy and he's read Whisper as well. He's been good to me. He's been there from the beginning.
Yeah, Eddie is definitely a great dude.
Yeah.
Um, so you write this book, and do you know what you're gonna do with it next? You write it, and you're like, I'm gonna pitch it to agents. I'm gonna self-publish it. I'm gonna do something in between. What was the next step?
Pure delusion was the next step. So I honestly thought you write a first draft, you maybe proofread it twice, and then bam, you have a book in a month. And as you're well aware, that is absolutely not the case. So I started writing this thing in, let's just say, July, and I wanted to have it done by like book form done by like May. And once you start like doing serious research and looking into it, looking into editing, cover designs, it's amazing. I got it done within 3 years. Because my first plan was to do, I wanted to go the traditional route, just because I mean that's everyone plans to do that. But it's a hard book to pitch because it's not really like a pitch. It's just kind of an epic fantasy story with like lots of action. There's not like a hook. I can't give you a 2 sentence summary and you're gonna say that sounds awesome. Let me read it. So I queried like 4 guys and they all said no. So I was like, what the hell with this? I'm gonna do it myself. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank goodness you did. My pitch, I certainly can't. I'm not good at pitching, but my pitch is just we said, lizard people, man. Like
Yeah.
my favorite character, which hopefully we'll get to talk about later, because I'm obsessed with Sardonyx. I'm obsessed with him.
Yeah.
In my head, um, I'm an old school. So the original Star Trek, if you watch that series, there's a creature that Captain Kirk encounters this planet called the Gorn. And it's one of the most iconic
I know exactly what you're
episodes
talking
ever.
about. Yeah.
And when in my head, when I saw Sardonyx and these people, I'm like, that's the Gorn, man. That's the
Yeah.
Gorn. Like just indomitable. Like so hard to kill. Just scary as hell, and just like so intractable, so obstinate in just single-minded. It was just fantastic. I can't get enough of all your characters, but
Yeah.
I gotta say my heart belongs to Sardonyx. It
Well,
really
listen,
does.
you're not alone in that. There's a reason he's on the cover now, because I mean, Sardonic sells.
Yeah, he is just friggin' phenomenal. So, quick shout out to the crowd. We have Lucas Clay says Timothy's my
Lucas
hero.
is a good dude.
He says Timothy's my hero. Thanks for coming by, Lucas. Honored you came out to support Timothy.
Yeah.
That's
Lucas,
great.
you need better heroes. I'm not the guy.
We have the fantastic Shane Boyce, great reviewer, does so much in the community, always shouting out books under the radar, included books. And Shane, thank you so much.
I have a funny story about Shane, not to interrupt you. So my second book comes out next week, next Friday. And for whatever reason, he pre-ordered the paperback on Amazon. And he got it like a month before the book came out.
Wow.
So that he put a 5-star review on it, and people were like giving me heat because like, why does he have a book and not me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even have a book.
Well, that's a good problem to have, man. And Shane is a brilliant reviewer. He does such concise reviews, but they're excellent, right? He really breaks down the criteria which he uses, and he does a phenomenal job. So shout out to Shane, great member of the community.
He's just a cool dude. I've been on a bunch of streams with him, and I just like he's just fun to be around. He's definitely
man, you're lucky, man. I haven't got. Hopefully, he'll come on. He'll do me the honor of coming on 6 Elementals in the future.
That'd be a good show,
Shane. But yeah, I would love to have you on. But yeah, he's just a great dude. And Eddie, the Goran, Eddie gets it. It's just I cannot get yeah. Sardonyx lives rent free in my head. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He is just a character, and I'm someone who I need that those characters. I'm a character driven reader, as you can imagine by how I write. I need those characters to really become immersed, and like I said, all of your characters were brilliant. But yeah, so Sardonyx definitely stood out. But tell me a bit about your series and some of your characters besides Sardonyx, because this for me, your book. I only read Platinum to the Darkness, but
Yeah.
your book was as action packed as it is, as funny as it is, as wonderfully campy and quirky as it is. I think some of the brilliance, I mean, other than the action scenes were phenomenal. The characters really stood out, and the characters were awesome. And I think my second favorite character would have to be David.
Yeah, those are, you hit, those are the two best guys. They really are by far.
Because David, I connected with him on so many levels.
Yeah.
That old veteran that he's worn down, man. He's been through the ringer. He's been there, done that. He's just looking for a little bit of happiness, a little bit of peace in as much as you can have peace in the environment, the world that he finds himself with. He's a mentor. People look up to, like, he's one of those. He's just that dude. So I really, really like David. It was close. It was close between him and Sardonyx. But tell us about some of these characters and about your book in general.
So I wanted, obviously everyone does this. I wanted everyone to be really different from each other. And it was kind of, on the first draft, I'd say like 70% of the chapters were for Zine's point of view. Because he's kind of like the new guy. So it's really good for people to just walk up to him and tell him stuff that the reader needs to know. And I wrote a lot from him, but I it felt weird to have him have like 70% of the book. So I started branching out. And like I wanted to focus a lot on Serena because he's really important to the story. And the one I love that everyone hates Francis, but I love Francis so much. He's like, especially in the next two books, you're really gonna get a lot of Francis. And what's funny is I like to take a lot of my things that I know are flaws because I'm pretty self aware. I know what I do wrong, and I shoved a lot of that into him, just like the arrogance and all that stuff. And one of the early feedback I got was like, "I hate this guy." So I had to like kind of self reflect on myself, you know. So I definitely toned him down a bit. In the first draft, I didn't know his character yet, so he was actually very similar to Zine, which didn't work at all because you had like these two overly optimistic, happy guys, just and kind of making him into a snob definitely made the character. Or he's just like
Yeah.
mad, dying people are bleeding on him and stuff. It really,
I found that's one thing I really have to compliment you on, and I'm going to get back to that quickly. But just in the chat, so Willow Wraith Press has come by, and they're
oh,
saying,
that's Bill Adams, if you know him. He wrote.
"I
Oh, I
just,
don't have it
yeah,
anymore. It's in my new place. But the God's Blood tragedy.
yeah, definitely Bill, great member of the community again, and he thanks Bill for coming out. Wonderful member of the community. Check out
He's
Willow
really
Wraith
good.
Press.
I love that dude.
Yeah, he's
really
fantastic.
I wish I had his
Yeah,
book.
he says Tim looking real fly with that shirt. So a big compliment on on the gear. So that's fantastic. Thanks again for coming out to support Timothy. So yeah, and
Not
that's
to
what.
interrupt you. He had a book come out last week, Lady Dragon Slayer. You probably seen.
Oh
it.
yes, yeah, I seen that definitely on my TBR. It's TBR. Oh my gosh, it's crazy,
dude,
but
don't forget about it.
yeah,
Like, that's why I really I hate being this overrun because I can't do it. It's like I wanted to have your book finished before I hopped on here, and I'm not even close.
dude, you get to it when you get to it, man. It's book 5 in the series. Like, I mean, it's not even published yet. So, but thank you. I'm honored that you would accept.
Oh, dude, I'm really
an arc,
excited because
an arc,
the last
so.
book was so good. I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but a lot of the things he did. I want to talk about you, so we'll get there.
Well, this is about you though. Just remember that. So, but yeah, the big compliment I want to give you was that you definitely. This is one of the characteristics on which I evaluate a great writer is when you write multiple POVs, how distinctive the voices were, and all those voices were so distinctive. You did so well. You did Serena, so you did all of your characters so well. Yeah. They felt like different people. Part of it I found was I love this. So let me just go on some of the elements I love, and you can address some of them if you feel so inclined. I love the evolution of the relationship between Serena and Z. So that was, I love relationships that you can see how it's developing, and you can see why there's obstacles, and you can see why maybe these people might not should be potentially together, but also
Yeah.
why they are, and how that could turn bad for other people involved. But that was one of the things that I loved about your book. So that relationship.
They were really fun to write, and I kind of want to just hop on like the popular train and write a romantasy, but I don't think I'll do a better job than I did for those two. To be clear, I did make a lot of mistakes. I think I rushed it. So in the new version, I think the dialogue is better in a sense. So it kind of works a lot more. Because one of them, this is probably not healthy, but I read every single negative review I get, and I look for like reoccurring themes to see what's not working with people. And one of the things you mentioned was how the dialogue sometimes feels too modern, and that's absolutely true. So that was one of the biggest things. The new version doesn't have that. That's been completely reworked. And another thing people were talking about was the relationship wasn't really working for them. It was going too quickly. And I can't change the story at this point in a relaunch, but I can make the dialogue better and just kind of make it more even. So what I do in the second book is the Rinso novels that Zeno always talks about. I have the characters comment on that, and they say that the romance is rushed, the names make no sense, and the language is too modern. And that's kind of like my nod to saying, I get it, guys. It's message received.
Well, I gotta say, the Planet Darkest was definitely a 5-star book easily.
That's thank you.
And I'll be frank, it's not the kind of book that I would normally just jump to pick up just because I don't read. Frankly, I don't read a lot of anything that's even close to like RPG or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
And I know yours isn't specifically that, but there's a lot of elements. But I loved it. It was fantastic. And again, like I think the relationship was so well done, and any minor issues with dialogue didn't detract from my enjoyment. Like I loved it.
Yeah.
I burned through that book. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I loved every time Zine talked about Rinso and just this fanboy idolization of everything Rinso and quoting it. And you could tell people were just rolling their eyes. You know what I mean? It was just like It was just awesome. I love that. Louis Press says the Rinso books are fantastic. Mount them like a Z from. That's awesome.
What did he say? I can't read comments.
He says the Rinso books are fantastic. Mount them like a Zephon.
Yes. What's funny about that is if you check Kindle, you can see your popular highlights. And for whatever reason, that's the most popular highlight in the book.
Yeah, no, I thought that was Zine's character. Like the thing is about Zine is that here's someone who clearly wanted to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Was so young that he wasn't quite sure at times what the right thing was, but he was trying to get there, right? He knew he was up and coming. He knew he was talented, but he knew he wasn't on a certain level yet. He's torn. His loyalties are somewhat divided. And then, of course, with Serena, in a way, it even complicates it more in some ways. But what I loved about him is that he was just so true to himself. He was just so like, kind of, this is who I am. And, like he struggled with certain things, but he, ultimately, I think he came out as like the way you wrote him, as just a fabulous character, right?
Yeah, I love him a lot. I'm you're gonna love the second book. I can say that in all sincerity. Because all the things that you like are expanded upon. So it's like you're it really makes me happy to hear all this.
Oh, I have no doubt, man. I have no doubt. And David, of course, like I said, I think for David, and I mean I'm not trying to spoil things, but characters like that, when you give them a glimpse of happiness, the happiness that they want, and then they can't get it. You know what I mean? Like it just, and I didn't predict this, but I just felt like there's a turn coming. Something's going to happen because there's no way that character is going to be the same after that. But I didn't know what that turn was going to be. But I think you did it so realistically in how that evolved. I know there's more coming, but you know, his arc is probably the most fascinating to me. Like, what is this guy gonna do, right? You know, like, and you know, he has the most baggage and the most connection to the original regime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know, he's someone who he's got that lens by which he can see like this is going down a bad path, but if I do this, this is, you know what I mean? Like these are the
Yeah.
reasons. So I loved his arc. I loved his arc. Like his arc.
Him and Sardonyx are the best characters, I think, by a pretty large margin. Because I don't know. He was always kind of, he was more of a jerk in the first draft.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's really, you have to find that line with the Stern characters,
Yeah.
where it's like, if they're abusive to a point where it's like not fun to read, no one's gonna appreciate this kid. They're gonna want him to die, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and Little Ray Press says, "Yep, the second book IMO is the best of the trilogy." Okay, that's what he's saying. So I am so looking forward to getting to book 2, Tales of Maelstrom, in the near future. I also want to say, and again, I could talk about these books all day and characters, but just leaving off characters in this section, the one thing I loved about the characters in your book as well is that they they were messy. They were messy. They were flawed. They had baggage. They had issues. They, you know, there was no real straightforward, like just like, yep, except for one who maybe, you know, unfortunately got taken off the board, which you know I'm talking about. It was probably the most straightforward, you know, kind of like empathetic, kind of like somebody you could really get behind because, you know, you know, and definitely in a leadership role, etc. But and that was man, that was tragic. That was tragic. What went down there.
What was weird about that scene was it's hard to talk about without spoilers, but it was written from a different POV, and it didn't work at all. Like it was just kind of explaining what was happening instead of feeling it. Because it was actually from a Wisdom's point of view, which was not a good move.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture that from that point of view, but I think the impact was definitely hit hard.
Because it was pretty much just him telling you what's happening. He's like, oh, he swings at her, she swings at him, and I'm like, this sucks.
No, that hit hard, man. That hit hard.
That was,
and of course, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's so and so gonna do now? You know what I mean? After that, like, how are they gonna go on? Are they gonna take this? You know, so, and of course, the other character involved in this, you know, I don't suppose, like, you know, I can say with Wisdom, more of an ambivalent, unknown, gray, seemingly potentially bad but not sure character. His motivations are still kind of unknown and shady to a point.
Yeah.
But the other character that I'm talking about, the scene, the one that you know, probably more of the bad guy in a way, but yet still understanding some of those motives. And that's what I love about. I love flawed characters. Well, you can imagine by right.
You're right, Alfred. So I mean, it's like
yeah. So I mean, when you see a flawed character, and now it's more tilting clearly towards the evil side, you want to know that it's not just all about straight up evil. You want to know they have, you know, some redeeming qualities, or at least you can understand the motivations behind how they got to the way they got, etc. And I found that character really interesting in terms of, you know, what they were all about, right, and why they were, you know, so horrible on so many levels. And you know, that's the character I'd love to see a backstory, story about like how they came up, especially their interaction with David, and you know how they got, because they're in such a position of power. Like it would be great to see, you know, more of their backstory. But that's what I mean. The characters are awesome, and I can look through all your characters and say there was something that really kept me intrigued about all of them. And that again, just great storytelling, right? When you're invested in all the characters, even the ones that you don't like that says something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like the characters in my story, it's absolutely not going to work for you because it's a very character based story. So I mean, it's I'm kind of all in on that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think one of the things that really worked in terms of the interactions between the characters is that I always say this, and other people have said it, so this is something original I've coming up with. But writers, really good writers, give you what you think you don't need in the story. You think you want
Yeah,
the story to turn out a certain way, but they don't give you that. But then you're like, oh man, but this is really great the way you did it. And that's one of the other things I can really compliment you on. That was just fantastic with the story. That the twists and turns that it took, I thought like, oh man, but it's like, but I love the way he did it, right? And that was,
yeah,
especially at the end of the book, because he surprised me. Obviously, yeah, again, I'm trying not to spoil for those that the direction it took at the end of the book would definitely surprise me with a couple of the characters in general. And Francis, uh, was I mean, he wasn't at the periphery, but he was in some ways. And then his arc took a turn. Like just the turns were awesome. But
yeah.
yeah, the turns were awesome.
I'm Francis was a lot of fun though. He's actually kind of similar to Mute, the character from my novella,
Yeah,
and I got a little nervous because I felt like I was getting a little too close to the character on that. But I really liked Francis because, especially in the second and third book, he expands on his relationship with Wisdom, and Wisdom's a very arrogant character,
yes,
and Francis is drawn to that because he's very in his shell, introverted,
yeah.
nervous, and he kind of like yearns. He's like, man, I want to just be able to have no limitations, just to do whatever I want without any fear or stress. So he kind of clings to someone who's not good, you know. So
Yeah, you can see he craves competence. He craves to
yeah,
be respected for his competence and
yeah,
and for his knowledge. And I find that characters like that in general, those are what you also have to be careful of, because
oh yeah.
when you're looking for something, when you're looking for that validation, how far are you going to go to get it, right? So that was I found that very intriguing.
That's
Found that
why I
very
really
intriguing.
liked Arrogance as a character because like he doesn't hate the people fighting him. He's like, what are you guys doing? Just
Yeah,
please let me win. I can make
yeah.
everything so much better. You just stop.
And that is awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But quickly, I know, and I can't help it. We got to talk about Sardonyx War.
Ah, yeah.
Like this
This
dude.
is
He stole every page that he was on. What's the inspiration for a character like that?
so this is I always laugh when I think of this. So before I started writing the story, I thought he'd be the main villain. And I pictured his name wasn't Sardonyx, it was Darkclaw, which is really silly, but that's if you read the first draft, it says Dark Space Claw for his name. But then I realized like Tempest Claw, like, that would mean his name is Dark, and I mean that's just pretty stupid. So I googled like powerful rock, I think, and Sardonyx came up. So I was like, "All right, your name is Sardonyx." But in the early, how I pictured him in my head was like a dinosaur Darth Vader. Because I mean, like that's the only way you can make Darth Vader more cool is if he's a dinosaur. So he was gonna have like dinosaur spaceships and dinosaur like ATTs, and I was like, I can't write any of this. I got to make this really micro. I'm not smart enough to write sci-fi, so I wanted to just limit it. And he just never really he didn't fit the bill as a villain, or he does terrible things, but he's not evil. He's just really in his own. He truly believes in his beliefs.
Yes, yes, he does, and he also truly has a sense of morality that although people may not agree with it or understand it, or I think even people still respect it to a certain degree.
Yeah,
Even though as violent and as twisted in some ways it is, you know where you stand with this guy,
yeah,
right? You know what he cares about, and he cares about honor. Like honor means a lot to him, his version of it, right? it means a lot to him. And he also, you know, there were moments of, for me, for the character, surprising compassion in a way, like in the
Yeah.
most unexpected ways. How, and again, I'm trying not to spoil it, but how he,
Yeah.
how it manifests. So I just thought he was such an amazing character. He's just phenomenal. Give me more
Yeah.
sardonics.
There's a lot of him in the next book because you'll notice Tempest is on the cover here.
Yes,
So it is
yes,
there's a lot of that going on. And it's just like what was I gonna say? I really like how there's this scene where Serena's like reminiscing about him and she's mad because she always hated him, but like she kind of respects him because he's the only leader that tells the truth.
yeah,
He's not a liar. He has like no Machiavellian schemes. He just wants to be
yeah,
strong.
yeah.
Because like in his eyes, if he's not powerful, his kingdom's gonna fall. And he's not wrong, which is kind of scary. So he's kind of forced to become this. He likes it, but he's forced to be this way.
Yeah, and you know what? He clearly he has no issue with killing, and he
No,
will kill,
not at all.
right? But there is a method to his madness, if I can. That's the best way I can describe it. And his indomitable nature was just like characters like that. He reminds me in a way of comparatives. I know it's not the same, but someone like Carson Orlong from Malazan. Like he's
Yeah,
just that dude where like you can't mess with him because there's no such thing as he's not going to kill you if it needs to achieve his end. He will. Like there's no if ands or buts. It's just it's just he was
yeah.
so
I wanted to make him way overpowered, and not exactly skillful, but like overpowered.
yeah
Like one of the time when he's fighting Knife the first time, Knife's like commenting that he's not really skilled and he's
yeah
just swinging wildly like a brute, and
yeah
yet he gets his ass kicked. So it's like
yeah
it doesn't
exactly
matter.
yeah, and that he's that guy, man. And I like I said, I
Yeah.
loved his character. So quick in the chat, we have Nick Alexandropoulos that says
Oh, he's a
Tim.
good dude.
He's shouting you out. So thanks, Nick, for coming by to
I
support
appreciate that.
Tim.
Big respect to anyone watching this at 9:30.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we got James, the media manager. Awesome for the channel. Hey, James. Thanks for coming by. He says, hi,
Thank you for
all.
coming.
Sorry I'm late. You're never late, James, even if you just watch the replay. But we really appreciate you coming by. He's a fabulous support of the channel as well. And thanks for coming out to see Tim. We also have Alex Sherman. Says, howdy, howdy. So
Alex is
nice.
a good dude.
Thanks for coming out, Alex. We really appreciate it. Of course, Tim's drawing the crowd here. Oops, sorry to go back to this comment. Will Press. I still stand by the fact that Knife is the greatest name ever. So, yeah, and we didn't even talk about a character like Knife again. Potentially could be viewed as an evil character,
Yeah.
right? But yet complex and complicated and nuanced, and you showed all those sides of it, and you come to go. Because at first, it's easy just to miss him. Like, yeah, you hate this guy, and he's just, he's evil. But then when you get into him, and you see some things he does, and you're like, wait a minute, is he the bad guy? Yeah, he has to be. Well, wait a minute though. And that ambiguity again, that's great character writing. That you're not sure. You have to question your own judgment as the reader as to, well, just how bad is this guy? Some things he's doing, I kind of get. You know what I mean? And it gets to that point where it's like, okay, he's still bad, but he's not 100% bad. I love when you make the reader revisit their assessment of a character.
He's he was. It was hard to find the line with how evil to make him.
Yeah.
But now that I've read some Romantasy, my biggest regret was not making him really hot. Because I I think that would have sold some more books.
That's awesome. Nick just says, "Oh crap!" And then NJ Alexander says, "You all saw nothing." So, thanks, NJ, for coming out and supporting, Tim and stopping by. And you have a question from James, the media answer. He asks, Tim, what were your inspirations for this story?
Good question. I mean, the biggest one by far was World of Warcraft. So I'd say it's a pretty big combination between World of Warcraft and Dragon Age. And I love the idea of like the party, the healer, the tank, the melee DPS, the caster DPS. And I didn't know what lit RPG was. I still have not ever read one, but apparently it's a big thing right now. And it's like fighting with numbers. I wrote this purely from like a word standpoint. And I found challenges. That's why Serena uses shields, not like healing magic. Because like in a video game, when the ogre stabs you in the shoulder, you can just heal it and get 60 health back. But like in a novel sense, if someone crashes an axe into your head, you really can't fix that. I mean, there's no magic. It just sounds ridiculous.
Oh man,
So I
that's
figured
hilarious.
like you have to prevent the damage instead of healing it. So that's why it's so shield based, because I mean you can have little cuts and stabs and stuff, but if someone like rips your arm off or something, you're not gonna recover from that.
Yeah, exactly. I found a lot of the combat was fabulous, really realistic, and like you have these powerful beings taking on more powerful beings, and I like the whole concept. One thing, and I haven't read really a lot of lit RPG. I do plan to read more of it. There's a couple of books on my docket this year that definitely fall in that category. But the concept of, and I think it's more like almost for me a comic book kind of like thing that I enjoy, like more Avengers style. That you need all these characters to come together if they want to beat someone with that next level of powers, right? You need a
Yeah,
combined effort to take on the gods essentially, right? You know what I mean? Like you need that effort from these uber powerful beings that are close to gods themselves, but not there. They're mortals, most of them.
yeah,
And like that was really cool. To access the famous quote, "Just a flesh wound."
yeah. Bearded Book Beast has a great. He called it the Grimdark Avengers, and I was like, oh, okay, that's better than anything I've come up with.
Oh, there you go. Hey,
Yeah,
there's a pitch for you right there, man. You got to
yeah.
use that one, brother. That
But
that
do
that's
you ever play any MMORPGs like World of Warcraft or anything like that?
Nope, nope. I'm old and I haven't played games in like decades and decades. When the original D&D came out, like I'm talking like the first iteration, I briefly played a couple of campaigns. I must have been I'm in my teen. That was my teens, and I'm in my 50s now, bro. So I'm talking like
Yeah,
a long time ago,
I hear you.
like the inception of D&D. So
What's funny is like one thing I played World of Warcraft for years, and one thing I kind of learned is that certain personalities shift towards different roles. Like the party leader usually is the tank because that's the one that decides when we're going to attack, and the healer is usually the smartest person in the group because they need to be to survive. And the people who don't care and just want to see flashy numbers just play a rogue or a mage or something like that. So I wanted to like kind of have each member of the team have a personality that was similar to what I saw in my time as a gamer.
Oh, well, that's awesome. And again, although I don't have the context because I'm not a gamer, I can see the way you paint it so clearly and so, like so succinctly. Like, yeah, I get it. When I think back of all the cast of characters, I can
Yeah.
see who's fitting into those roles, right? So, now, uh, and Willow with presses Leroy Jenkins.
Yes. Yeah. That was the callback right there.
Yeah. Um, so Eddie asked, and I'm curious about this too. Says Tim, tell us more about reading romantasy lately. So yeah, so romantasy, like I know that for me, I absolutely love romantic relationship elements
Yeah.
in fantasy, and not necessarily romantasy. Not that I don't like that, but just I love to see a fantasy book. I feel it's part of the realism, like relationships and sex and love. Those are things that that's
Yeah.
part of us, just like battles and political intrigue and all those things. I feel that in a well-rounded book, that's part of it. To what extent you do it, and to what extent depending how much you include it, does that define it as delving into the subgenre of romantasy or not? That's up to the reader, I think. Some authors clearly market their books as romantasy, some don't, but they have a lot of romance in it. Like I don't think it really matters.
Yeah,
but yeah, tell us
that's what I
about.
wanted to know because you're asking. Our brains work the same way. You were wondering all the things I was wondering. So I agreed to a buddy read of A Court of Thorns and Stars. I think that's what it's called. And I just wanted to get it. I want to be like, what is this, and how do I incorporate this into my own work? Because this is a hell of a lot more successful than I am. You
Well,
know?
Sarah J. Maas. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get
Yeah.
much more successful than that, right? So.
So I had a pretty stupid misconception. I honestly thought it was like first chapter meet the hot character and then they just have sex every other chapter and then have a love triangle and break up. It wasn't that at all. It was actually romance. There was very little romance, which is absolutely not what I was expecting. Like it's the key part of the story. It's working up to these two characters falling in love, but it's not cheesy. It was actually very well done. I gotta say, it was a great book, and the world building was on par with any epic fantasy I've read.
Oh wow. Oh
So
wow.
I mean,
So.
it's not like I'm probably sounding really ignorant, but it's not. I thought it would be cheesy, and it wasn't. It was good.
Oh, well, fantastic. So, is that like what sort of romantic books have you read, and do they have an influence or impact on your writing as well? Like,
Zero influence because I haven't written anything since I started reading them, so I got to get back to it. I'm kind of I have Whisper 2 coming out, and Whisper 2 is no romance at all. It's I kind of thought I did a bad or a poor job on the romance in Platinum Tints of Darkness. So I kind of figured
oh.
for Whisper, if the romance is purposely written poorly, it will work. So the main guy is obsessed, madly in love with a woman who wants nothing to do with him. So it's no romance, like real romance. It's infatuation, but there's no romance.
I see. Well, and I like that stuff too because it's
Yeah,
always. I think it's always fascinating, like unrequited love, like to see someone like really get messed up over,
yeah.
wanting to be with someone and they don't necessarily, and sometimes because it's not the right relationship for them anyways, right?
Well, to give you
So
some context, the woman he's in love with is a prostitute. So I mean that's a rough road.
yeah, yeah, that is, yeah, that definitely is. So okay, well, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to reading that. Alex Sherman quickly says, yeah, healer's smart and full of spite. He says about
Oh, that's so
healers. Yeah.
true. It was funny. I was a rogue most of my days because I just wanted to stab things. And then as I got older, I played a priest, and that's why most of the point of views are from Serena, like the battle point of views, because healers watch everything. They know every mechanic. They know who's in danger and why. When you're DPS, damage per second, all you're doing is stabbing the monster. You don't care. You just want to top the damage charts and brag about it. So it's like a whole different mentality.
Well, that's awesome. Oh, Shay may not be a fan, but that doesn't. That's fine. Everybody's out their taste. It says mute wants in quotes some romance. LMAO.
Yeah,
That's Shay. Yeah, and not everybody. And I get it. Now, there's actually a lot of readers that don't like romantic in their fantasy, and specifically what I've heard is predominantly that's not because they don't even like that they have issues with romance. Just they say that it's not well done. Typically, that
yes,
they
I
find that
absolutely
that
agree with
it's
that.
kind of cringy. And who knows how your romance is gonna land in your fantasy, how your sex scene, or how you write. Like I write it like I think I write my scenes personally like as close as I believe that is realistic. Like this is
Yeah,
how relationships work. They're twisted, they're messy. Sometimes you have casual relationships, sometimes you have deep relationships. I also wanted to depict like real love and sex between married people because that happens too.
yeah.
It may not be as hot or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like those are all things that I wanted to include in my books because
I
like
really want to compliment you on writing Othrin because it's so I don't know the word. I want to say it's funny, but it's always like when he's like, "Okay, I'm done cheating. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be," and then he's like, "Ooh, who's that?" And you
yeah.
know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's we're weak human beings and we have flaws and
Yeah,
foibles, and I think that I mean we can all see that happening, and it's not just because you're in a certain position or a certain authority or power that's not a human thing, right?
yeah.
So,
It's
but
actually
yeah,
really. I mean, you do such a good job. That's why I loved your series because like he's not stupid by any means. He's very calculated, and intelligent, but he's just so weak. I think you really capture like kind of like not an addict, but like that mind frame of I have to stay away from this, but I can't. I have no willpower, and it's amazing because like each time he does it, the ramifications are like are world changing. You know, it's like
Yeah,
it's
and I think,
really
well, thank you for that, and that's, I think that's life. I think that's, I was just talking about that earlier with I was on, had the honor of being on Ford Bierman of the Apocalypse, of the book Apocalypse, and we were talking
right.
about, like, yeah, like, you know, you see it today, like world leaders do stuff that could be world changing just because I don't like that dude. So I'm not going to subscribe to that policy. Nothing to do with, I just don't like that other leader. I don't
Yeah,
like him, or he pissed me off, or I don't like his tie, or whatever. Like
yeah,
and you see that, that's how life works. It's not, and people always think that they're supposed to be held to this higher standard, but they're human beings, right? So, and that's one reason why I love your work, because your characters, they're real people, right? They're
yeah,
not cardboard cutouts, right? And characters, like I said, are, like we talked about, are big for me. They're big for you. So, kudos to how well you do your characters. Eddie Castro just put a rec. Daughters of the Moon Goddess by, I think it's Sue Lin Tan. Does it
okay.
well. So does romance well.
And he
So that,
messaged me that on Instagram because I can't read comments. I don't have the thing on my screen.
yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure why that feature
No, it's my
is,
fault.
but
I'm
but
doing this from a web page. I'm probably doing
but
it wrong.
yeah. So that's a good rec. I'll definitely put that one down. Eddie always has some great recs.
Yeah, it's funny
So
because like when I was a kid, when I was like 10, 11, I thought world leaders were the smartest people in the world. And now I'm 37. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe we're still alive. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Right.
yeah.
Quickly, I'm just gonna throw this one out there that Lucas Clay says, "I want a shirt like Tim's." So your
Who
shirt's
said
getting a
that?
lot of love, bro. Right? So and Eddie says, "Will do." He'll
All right,
throw
thank you.
that. Eddie's awesome. So yeah, and I think you see that in your books that again, you have a big time leader that's not the best,
Yeah,
not the best leader. But when you're in those positions, the choices you make, and again, perfect example, guided by spite and all kinds of other things that have nothing to
yeah.
do with being a good leader, right? And but I also think too that there's a saying, one of my heroes that admires, Martin Luther King, that the he says he has many great sayings, but that one of them, and I'm not quoting properly, that the moral arc of the universe leads towards justice eventually, and like you'll get there eventually. And I, I love reading your books. I love reading the flawed character. I love reading the messed up things that happen. I love reading the choices and everything else. Um, do you believe in happy endings? I can't wait to read the rest of your series, and I know that I'm going to love it. And I plan to read everything in the universe. But and I'm not asking you to spoil what the ending is truly. But do you believe in happy endings in as a novelist, as someone who writes fiction?
Um, I believe in rewarding endings, and I'd say bittersweet maybe, but it just has to be rewarding. Like that's it's really hard to talk about without spoilers, but hmm. So in the no, actually, I'm not going to go there, but usually yes. I think that's my answer is usually yes. But
Yeah,
sometimes it's not meant to be. You know, you gotta. I mean, I don't think. I'm just gonna say I would never end an entire series on pure misery. I would never do that to
yeah,
somebody.
yeah,
But I mean, not everyone's gonna make it to the end. I mean,
yeah,
there's got to be
yeah.
if there's no cost, there's no stakes. It doesn't matter.
No, agreed. I agreed.
Yeah,
If I totally agree, like and that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to it, because clearly, even looking at the arcs, and you can never predict, because you're a great writer, and I always say again, one of the best writers, they give you not necessarily what you want, but what makes the story great, and
yeah,
I can tell some people definitely are. I don't know who they are. Not all these characters can make it out just by
yeah,
virtue of what they do, just by virtue of their jobs, essentially.
yeah,
They ain't making it out, and especially coupled with the arcs that they're on. If they make it, I'll be stunned. But I always, count on you to surprise me, because that's what great authors do too.
yeah.
But
I mean, the problem is if you don't do that, it kind of loses like the stakes.
yeah, Yeah,
You
especially the trilogy or longer series. I know
know,
I always tell people, so many people, and I'm not like I have some big audience, but what small audience I have, they always ask me like, they know that I have all these books planned in this universe, and they're like, how's this gonna turn out for someone like Austin? I'm like, well, just watch. But yeah, I agree. I think it was very well said. We said I don't believe in happy endings or bittersweet endings. Yeah, yeah, that's something I do believe in. So, but it's great to see. Like what I'm looking forward to with your series is on reread value, especially when the series is. I finished the series and I can see how it ends. To go back and see if I can predict. This is something I do with almost all series that I
yeah.
actually care about rereading because I don't reread all series. But I'm definitely sure rereading yours because it's really good. That to see, could I have seen this coming? Was there foreshadowing and things that could have led to this that I could see and figure out if I look more closely, right?
There's stuff that
From
you couldn't. It's really kind of too obscure to have figured it out without context. But if you do reread the first book, you'll be like, "Oh, okay."
yeah.
And I just asked, do you know who wrote the Rinso books?
I'm sorry.
Do you know who wrote the Rinso books? Who the author is?
I don't remember the name of the one that Zeke keeps referring to. I can't
Yeah,
remember the
the
name of the author. He says it a million times, but I can't remember the name.
well, he actually doesn't because the author is unknown. So
What was the other? No, I thought he said the name. Didn't he say the name when he the time when who was making fun of him about it? It was
it was
someone was
pious.
Pius, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
did he say the name then? Okay, maybe I messed that up. I thought he said the
No,
name
no,
then
it's fine. Yeah, but
because he's getting razzed about it,
yeah,
and I thought I said the name. Okay, well maybe I was mistaken then. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
So that's revealed really early in the second book. So
Ah,
that'll add a lot of context to a lot of things.
okay. I got to reread that because I was I thought he revealed the name. So okay, that's awesome. Okay, I got to go back. That gives me
Yeah,
something to go back even on reread now to quickly because I can't help it. I'm gonna compulsively after this done go back and read
yeah.
that passage because I have
What
it a
was
book because I have it bookmarked in the book.
yeah.
So because that was hilarious. So
What was really interesting about doing the relaunch when I redid the first book was I hadn't touched those POVs in like 8 months, and a lot of those characters are dead. So it was like
oh wow.
really, really weird to be like, oh, it's hello again, you know?
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, Will Great Press says, "What you know? What GOT star names versus the White Walkers in the final season." That's something. I think I was talking about that maybe. It was maybe a podcast or two ago. Don't ask me who it was.
Yeah,
Maybe it was Patreon. But you see, that's where. And again, like authors need to be able to write. I feel the books that they want to write. And I would want someone to go back and rewrite in their mind, would say, "Oh, wait, Paul, PL should have done this and this and this," and I'm sure you know what to say. And yeah, we can all say that okay, that we're not perfect, and how we write our books is ultimately up to us. And some of the plot twisted things we do are for a reason, and some of them are we feel are part of a well written story. And it doesn't mean everybody's gonna like them, but I have to say, like when because we're able to pick apart something like Game of Thrones, which is one of those popular TV shows ever,
yeah.
and everybody. I'm not spoiling everything. I'm talking about this is the spoiler, right? Very few people have it. So I remember going back, and this is going to relate to your books as well. So I remember going back and rewatching. I've watched Game of Thrones a million times,
Yeah.
and I've read the books a million times. The 5 books that are out in A Song of Ice and Fire, and I remember going back specifically and rewatching the episode Hearthold and what happens Hardhome in Game of Thrones. What happens in that particular episode? Have you seen all of Game of Thrones?
I've seen all. I don't. What episode are you referring to?
Hardhome. So Jon Snow goes to rescue the wildlings and bring them back from beyond the wall, and he encounters
okay, yeah, yeah.
the White Walkers. And the scene at the end, what happens, and the camera is zooming in on Jon Snow, the Night King. Jon Snow, the Night King. And he does that, and it's all quiet. The bodies raise up, they're having to stare down. Jon's like, oh my God, this is what we're facing. This is what he can do. Like, if that didn't set up a 1v1,
Yeah.
and then you go back and you look at John turning this badass swordsman, everything happened. Like, the Night King's wearing this sword on his back. Like if you could not have foreshadowed a 1v1 John versus Night King any more than you already did. And I get subverting expectations. There's nothing wrong with subverting expectations in a story. But I think, as much as I didn't have an issue with who killed, and this is a spoiler. I mean, come on, guys. Almost everybody's watched the show.
Yeah.
But not having John at least get that pin, because they get to a point where it looks like it's going to happen, and then he raises the dead, and then the Night King takes off, and and then Daenerys saves him during the long night battle. But that moment when John is running up and he's running towards him, and you think it's good, it's on. It's going to be Night King reach Jon Snow. Like, maybe John's going to die, maybe he's going to live, whatever. But you're like, yes! And then this happened. And that it was the biggest tease, right? And then it's like, because you built this up over so many seasons, and then you're like, oh man, but I want to see that. I want to see that. And
I think people will overlook almost anything as long as they're entertained. Because like people started making like 4-hour videos about that one episode and going into every single problem, the lighting, this guy shouldn't be in this room. You should. If they would have just had a satisfying ending, nobody would. They just shut up. Nobody cares, Like in Return of the Jedi, there's a scene where Luke kicks someone and he totally misses.
Yeah,
back.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If you point that out, people are just like, "Shut up! That movie's great. Nobody cares." Yeah. It's like. So I think if people love something, they'll overlook anything.
And the thing
totally didn't do that.
No, you're right. And I do love, for all of the issues with, especially the final couple seasons, I do love Game of Thrones. I think it's still one of the greatest fantasy shows ever, and nothing's gonna make me not rewatch those episodes over and over and over again. And that George R. R. Martin's one of my favorite. I was like, no, but I think, and I have to say, like, one thing that this all relates back to your book is like, I can read your book for the depth, because there's definitely depth there. It's not just fluff. It's not just, fast-paced action. Yeah, get your, like, Marvel, right? There's a lot of depth, especially a lot of character depth. But, the thing is like, the entertainment value alone makes your series worth reading. And for something like Game of Thrones, the entertainment value alone makes it worth watching, right? But then you do have to look beyond it and look at the positives with character depth and all things that they did right, and just overlook, be honest, overlook some of the flaws and realize still how good it was, right? And
that's absolutely true.
And same with my book. My book has tons of flaws, but I hope that people not overlook the flaws, they acknowledge the flaws, but they understand that, it's not even perfect and it's very subjective. Some people love it, some people hate it. I was saying there's people that bounce right off Authorin, and they're done in the first book. They cannot take Authorin for who and what he is, and I totally get that. I respect that. And every book's very weird. But I think those who continue and actually enjoy the narrative and just read the story, they find themselves enjoying the series if they're into that. And I think with your books, it's really easy to get swept up, of course, in the action and what's happening next, because it's like, it's that adrenaline rush, right? But, I think for me, who likes normally slow books, this was amazing, man. Like I typically read, I read slower books, certainly, heavier books in terms of the page count and in terms of, but this was awesome. So,
I mean, it's funny because we're totally different philosophies on that. You went with the very slow beginning, and I went with the overly quick one. I was afraid to be boring, and that was my biggest fear, because it was like there's millions of books out there. If people aren't excited, they're going to quit after like the first 2 pages. So I was scared. I just scene 1, action, go. It's like.
But it works, right? It works, and again, there's a book for everybody, and some people, that's all they. Some of the best books I've ever read are very action oriented. But I think the one thing different between yours is that a lot of the action oriented books I've read, I'm not invested in the characters as much, and I don't remember the characters. And for me, if you want to know what makes a book really, really good for me, is one where whatever happens, and I said this earlier, that the character, the one character at least, that transcends the book itself. And you may not remember the names of his or her friends. You may not remember every battle they fought in. You may not remember all the political matter. But that character stands out. Just an impression. I wrote the John Kingdom saga. Like, if you forget everybody else about everything else, by the time you're done, you remember Othrin.
Yeah.
You remember some things he did, good, bad, and different. You remember his journey. Like, even if you don't remember Glathan's name or Thurl's name or whose son is whose or what kingdom is it, like, you're gonna remember Othrin, right? Othrin. And I think whether it's, like I talked about this earlier, whether it's Mark or Jorg Arnkath from Broken Empire, or a Sandan Glokta from First Law, or the characters, right? It's the characters that ultimately are what I think makes a book great, because the greatest books in the world, whether it's the Hobbits or whatever you want, you're going to remember those characters. You may not remember every single little detail, especially these voluminous fantasies that have all these big character lists and all these lists of naming places, but it's the characters that you remember, what they did, how they lived and died, if they survived, and the caring about that is what I think makes a great book, and you certainly have that in your series. And I can't.
I mean, Othrin is such a good character. I'm drawn to that, like, super flawed character you can't turn away from. Like, my favorite TV show of all time is BoJack Horseman, and to me, Othrin is like kind of BoJack Horseman. You just want him to kind of get it together, and he never will, never does. And yet you don't hate him. You should, but it's like,
yeah, and I think you'll find this book, because you have the arc of book 5, interesting in that a lot of people said this is the first time I thought I saw some change, and it was shocking to see, and it was like, because you saw a lot of it through the eyes of another character. Not to spoil it, you saw what Othrin was like through the eyes of another character that was close to him, that it made him more sympathetic and more understandable in a way, and that but anyways, I know you haven't. I don't know how far you've gotten reviews and started, but I'm interested to hear your take. I love your reviews. By the way, your reviews are awesome. So I can't wait to see.
It's like they're so. I think the funniest thing to me was the book 2. You have that little disclaimer. It's like, listen, I don't believe this. I'm just throwing that out there. What kind of made you put that in there? Or you just kind of jumping ahead of the curve?
No, yeah, that too, but also too was reading the reviews. A lot of them were very positive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people. There was one I read specifically that says, "I can't believe seeing what I've seen in this author. There's no way that he believes this. Like, he's not the right character." So I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's not like that, and because I know it's hard for people to conceive that, to write a character that flawed and with that many issues, right? Especially so bigoted and so open, like, you know what I mean. But I want to do an authentic, realistic job about that, and because you're in his head as first person, it's easy to get lost and believe, well, could the author believe that stuff because it's first person? You're hearing the I, and it's a different impact, right? But that was all purposeful, right? But anyways, I
really I kind of want to expand on that, because that's really funny. Like, I think if you were like a jerk, like a guy on Twitter who just roasted people all day, I'd be like, oh my god, that's so him.
Well, the thing is, like,
it helps that you're like one of the nicest people online. So it totally.
Thanks, bro.
I mean, there's never any point where it's like, maybe PL is problematic.
Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate that. No, I've known lots of people like Othrin. He's a conglomerate of a lot of people. He's a conglomerate of a lot of famous people, world leaders, and famous ancient leaders. Yeah. And just what I hope is a realistic version of an ancient type king that, got some issues, and I mean, his journey is a lot more complicated because of the other things he has to deal with on the magical side. But I try to read it. But anyways, back to your books. I don't want to stray here. So
okay, sorry.
you've got, and I appreciate you popping mine. I mean, you're so awesome. I'm honored that you're enjoying my series and that you're willing to read the books. So this is what we have. We don't have the novella here, but what's the plan? What's next? Can you share about what's next for you in terms of your writing? And
so it's been strange because I wrote The Whisper That Replaced God as a total standalone side project. This is something to get me back in the funk after writing a trilogy. Because I mean, you're probably gonna feel this when you finish, but I crashed hard. Just like total mental stress because it was like, oh my god, this is over. There will never be another word written in this series again, and that's like a tough thing, you know. Like it gets emotional. Like when you write Othrin's final chapter, you're gonna be like really hurting, you know. So I wrote this kind of, I don't want to call it a stupid story, but it is. It's really dark and goofy, and it's been so shockingly well received that I had to do more. And I did not expect that. I mean, if Bill's still here, I told him on the side, I was like, people are gonna either give this book 5 stars or 1 star, and it's been extremely well received. So I wrote the second one, and so far that's been well received too. So I'm about 30,000 words into a full length novel in the same world, and after that, I don't know. So I'm just kind of going,
Wow,
yeah, day by day.
that's amazing. So, can you give us any like hints? Like, you may not be able to, but when do you think this is gonna come out? Like, what like what's the context? Is it gonna be necessarily? You said a series, so not a standalone. So, first book in another. And again, you may not be able to tell me. And if you don't, I
Yeah.
respect that. Just say, trilogy, quadrology.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't. Um, and that's challenging because when I wrote my trilogy, I knew it was a trilogy. I knew the beginning and the ending. I am totally winging this. Winging every page of this book is winged. I have no idea what I'm doing, and people love it. So I don't know. I'm just gonna keep going until people stop loving it.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Willow Wraith Press says he was so worried about Whisper flopping hard. So I guess
Well,
that was
because
concern.
the main character, his name is Mute, and it's kind of an Othrin situation where he's a terrible person. And I mean, I was worried because same thing. It's first person, and you're writing a terrible person in the first person. And I was like, not only is this going to be hated, but people are going to think I'm really weird. You know, it's like a guy obsessing over prostitutes, and they're going to be like, "What the hell is this guy? What is going on with this guy?" Like, I didn't tell my mom it was coming out, but she stalks my Goodreads, so she found out.
Oh,
And funny
wow.
enough, she loved it. She loved it so
Oh.
much.
Well,
And
there you go, man.
yeah,
There you go, bro. I mean, sometimes those books that you think, and I don't know how you feel, like what a lot of people say are their favorite books in my series aren't my favorites. They're, I don't say that, but
yeah,
like I like this book or this book more. But like with this, like it just sounds like it was one of those books where you weren't sure how it was going to be received, but people loved it. So I mean, sometimes that's the best surprise of all. When
yeah.
you write a book where you're not sure, is this any good, but it's like, oh my gosh, people like it. That's Ed Shane voices. Yes, he's like,
Yeah.
hey, you got some people. He says, when can I get an arc? Oh, well, he goes, all right. So it sounds awesome. I still need to definitely read the novel.
It's weird
And
because like it's the first thing I've ever written that I don't love it. You know, it's just something I did. It was just kind of just going through the motions and putting a book out, and for reasons I'll never understand, it's probably my best work. And it
yeah,
doesn't have the heart. It's such a weird, dark little story. People really like it, and I'm trying to figure out. I don't want to ruin it. I want to just keep the same mindset and just keep
yeah.
winging it until it sucks, and then
Well, clearly, it does suck. Clearly, you're a great writer, and when
yeah.
you spit out something that you're not even sure about, it turns into a hit. You must be doing something right, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a
gets to
weird
the
feeling,
finalist of a major competition. Like that's you're a very modest guy, but that's something to be said for the caliber you're writing, right? Eddie just quickly says, Roaring Butte was a very bizarre yet educating single POV. I think Tim will surprise us with another rendition of this world.
Well, the second one I think is pretty good, and the early feedback, a lot of the feedback so far said it's better than the first one, and I can't necessarily agree with that. But who am I to just if people want to say it's better, then go ahead, that's fine. But it was really weird. I mean, I assume you're like a super plotter, right? You plot yeah, because you have a
Yeah,
massive world
yeah.
and you have big time frames and all that. I pants everything.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I
Yeah,
said that again today that it doesn't matter as long as you get the book out. It doesn't matter because so many people that pants are so successful and their books are beloved that you can do it any way that works for you. Man, it's more about what works for the author,
yeah.
right? Who cares if you pants your plot? It doesn't matter. Just get the book out, and if people love it, it's awesome, right? And as long as it's working for you, that's what you do. And I said today also in the podcast, I wish I respect in some ways Panthers more because the spontaneity of it and the ability to just write something like, okay, we'll see how this goes, and maybe I'll change this chapter, whatever. Like that's a skill, right? That's a skill that takes deep imagination and deep, just off the cuff, just And I'm still oversimplifying it, but yeah, I really think it's amazing that writers can do that, and I wish
Just
I could.
you need a lot of beta readers because the very first rendition of Platinum's Into Darkness, that one that wasn't released, was a train wreck. There was plot holes. There were people in the wrong place. I had to rewrite an entire chapter based on the location of a door, and it's tough because it's tough creating the world because there's no rules yet. Like writing books 2 and 3 were pretty easy because everything's
Yeah,
established. You know who people are. When you're pantsing, you need to decide. You need to how am I going to just wing this and make it make sense? And that's very challenging. That takes a lot of editing.
yeah. And do you have an editor, like established editor? Have you used different editors for your books? Are you like how what's the
So
process
good
there?
question. I used one guy for the first 3 books, Jonathan Oliver, he's really awesome. He would talk with me. He's in England, and we would talk like, and we would like have these. We're two professionals talking about like what language the lizard people would talk. Like he said, don't say honorless, say dishonorable because honorless is not a word. But one of the things is I kind of wanted when I did the relaunch. The I can't find it. When I redid it, I was like, I got to make this thing right. I want this to be like the book that I feel it can be. So I got a different editor for the second one, not because I didn't like his work, but because I want a different perspective. And she destroyed me. She left like 500 comments on things that were wrong and need to be improved, and I was so grateful because I was like, okay, great. Because I mean, if you don't get real criticism, you cannot improve, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah, no, no, I agree. Editors are probably the most valuable weapon in the entire writing process.
Yeah,
You need that. I cannot I cannot, you know, understate how important it is. And editors can make mistakes too.
oh,
They're not
absolutely.
perfect as well. Whether that's just the typo grammatical stuff or the content type stuff or whatever. But I think we all aim for great books, and of course, as indies, we have the luxury of being able to go back and rewrite and fix stuff if we really want to, and we got the time, we can afford it, we got the technical know-how, right?
Yeah,
But there's that point too where I think like you could end up rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and writing and revising and re-uploading your book a million times until it's a certain way. But then there's also that level of okay, but I wrote the book and like you said, you get to the point where especially continue wise, you can't go back and change certain things.
yeah,
And your book has to stand as is. And you can, you might be able to find an extra typo, but at the same time, it's like, okay, like I've read tons of traditional books with tons of typos
yeah,
and
yeah.
issues, right? So, but I think there's that point of being satisfied with your work and happy, and I think you should be really proud and satisfied with your
Yeah,
work,
well,
my friend,
thank you. That's why
because this is great.
I had to do this relaunch because like where I am as a writer now to where I was 4 years ago is night and day. And I was like, I can make this so much better. It got to the point where like I kind of I lost confidence in the book in the original book because like I was getting some bad reviews, people were hopping off it, and I was like, man, I gotta fix this thing, because no one's gonna read books 2 and 3 if they don't like the first one. So that's why I put a new cover on it and everything. I just wanted it to be like this is not just this is a new thing. I mean, it's like a brand new project, and so far it's been awesome. So I mean, I do feel like I made the right move so far. And the
Well, I,
biggest do you are you in Kindle Unlimited?
No, I'm white.
Okay. I'm noticing people who pick up the first book are reading books 2 and 3, and a lot more than they were like 2 months ago. So to me, that's the evidence that it's working.
I gotta agree. The sign of a great series is one that because we all know that your first book will always have the most reviews, will always be the most read. It doesn't
Always,
matter
yeah.
what you do. You can sell a million copies. That first book is still gonna be the one that has the most sales. But yeah, if you get that second or that third book close, between 40 to 50%, those are amazing numbers. If 40
Yeah.
50% of the people who read your first book read your second or your third, you're doing really well, man.
Absolutely.
You're doing well. You're doing well. So kudos, hats off to you
And the
for
flip side of
that.
that is, if it's not happening, you need to find out why. You know. And I think we're kind of in a unique position as writers where we can revise, like we were just saying, you can't do it all the time, but you can relaunch your work. you know.
Yeah, you can, but I think when I look at someone like you, who I definitely consider you. I know you might consider. I consider you a breakout indie author. I consider you one of those
Thank
up
you.
and coming risers that people are really paying attention to. People are really like Timothy Wolf. People are on you. They're on you, man. Like the awareness is there, right? So they
Yeah.
know you're talented. They know you're a good writer. They know. So I think your series is really starting to catch on. I think novella, especially, is getting a lot of traction, and getting that finalist award is getting a lot of traction. And I think sky's the limit for you, man. Like only going up. Um, I think the one thing that we as writers, the hardest thing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is we all. I think I know for me, it's always like there's literally. I'm not saying there's an amazing indie book coming out every single day.
Oh
Every single
God.
day, there's an
For sure.
amazing indie
Yeah.
sci-fi book. How and it's you're not competing against your colleagues. You're only boosting. Like, and this is what I love about our community. Like, I'll sit and talk about your books for like 5 days with people. I can sell your books way better than I can sell my own, and we
Yeah.
do that right all the time. Like we forget about even that we boost each other's book, right? Because this book's amazing. You got to hear about this book, and Timothy Wolf. It's like, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, it's easy to get lost, and you're only as good as
Yeah.
your last book. And with the indie market, because there's so many amazing books coming out every single day, it's frankly it's easy to just get lost, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're a good author, and I think we feel perhaps, and we have lots of friends in the trad world. Obviously, we're all
Yeah.
authors, and it's just how you publish it. It doesn't matter. But I think we feel a different kind of pressure in that I think we feel we have to keep going, really be prolific, like to pump out like lots and lots and lots of books.
Yeah.
And
That's like kind of why I really like the novella game, because I can write a novella in a month.
yeah,
Writing a 400-page book takes a lot of time, and your books are longer than mine, so I know you you know the struggles. But it's like it's tough, and I do feel bad because I think you've kind of mastered the game because you do a great job online. You just kind of have. I think people choose the person before they choose the book, and I could be wrong on that. Like I read your book because you were a cool dude and you were friendly
oh,
to me
thanks,
when I
man.
had like 30 followers. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna read this, and it was awesome. So and like I see a lot of guys on Twitter those every single day. It's like, here's my book, buy my book, buy my book,
Yeah,
buy my
yeah,
book, and after like the fourth time, you're like, dude, no one's gonna buy
yeah,
this.
yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
do something different. you
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, I hear you. And so much of it, like I was talking about earlier, is that I think the focus really, honestly, and I've said this publicly, is to boost other people's work and to bring
Yeah,
attention to
absolutely.
the rest of the community. And by virtue of you boosting other people's books, eventually someone will find their way around to your book and you'll get it back, right? You
Yeah,
don't have to worry about getting it back right away. That naturally it'll come back to you. And I think that is a path to success that also you can really feel good about, because let's face facts. I've talked about this a lot before. I'm sure you feel like as an indie author, you feel really slimy always promoting your book. Like I know most of us are like, we don't want to do that. Like we have to because we're indies. We don't have the traditional publishing, giant behind us helping to promote our books, to the point that I know a lot of trad publishers don't really promote their authors' books unless you're
yeah,
in that top percent of like the real sellers. But at the same time, it's like indies have no choice. You have to promote your book to some degree. But I always say it's also a brand. It's not just your books; it's who you
yep,
are.
100%.
Like you said, that's where you nailed it. I think it's like, I think that, you know, to get people to understand that you are credible and that you are a good author, I think in the indie sphere, it's critical to get to know you as a person and to know what you're about and know that you have integrity and know that you actually care about other people and other people's books and you're just part of a community rather than just, you're just a sounding board for your own work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think the more you give back and the more that you support other people, like I said, you get it back tenfold. And,
Yeah.
those blessings will flow back to you in some form or fashion, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because I mean, everyone has an endless TBR, and they're looking for any reason to trim that.
yeah.
So if you're a jerk online, you're just got axed from 1,000 TBRs. So I mean, it's like I see a lot of people post things where I'm like, ooh, not what I would have said,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. And I think, people have to realize too that, we can all have opinions on things and we're all different people and we
Yeah.
should all be entitled to our opinions and we should all be able to a certain degree, speak freely about certain things, but as well realize that it is a social media platform and there is I think there's a decorum and a certain respect that should be maintained, right? And like I think if you keep it professional, but not saying you have to lie and keep
Yeah. Yeah.
things, but I think if you keep professional, it's just like work. Your work colleagues know certain things about you, and you know certain things about them, and but it's still a workplace, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have to treat social media like that. It doesn't mean you can't talk about your family, your friends to a certain extent, or even your political views or whatever. But it's how you do it. It's much more about how you do it than what you do. I think how you
No,
conduct
that's
yourself.
absolutely true. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. So, and I think if you do that and you can maintain that, that's the other thing. You have to maintain it. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those things where one wrong comment or several or certain things you do and it's magnified because again it's there for posterity. It could be there for all time, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think most of us we want three things. So most of the writers here are readers too. They love good books. They love boosting their fellow writers' books. They want to find good books. They want to read them. They want to learn from other authors. I learned from you, from reading your books. I learned from all the authors. Like there's craft things you can pick up, right? And you want to. It makes you feel good to talk about other people's books. It makes you feel good. I feel so good writing a review that's a 5 star and just singing the praise of this book so that
Yeah.
someone could potentially discover it and maybe it hasn't been heard of it. Like that makes you feel good, right?
Especially if it's a book with like 4 ratings and you're about to just like slap a 5 star and post it everywhere and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
It
feels
feels
good,
good.
man. That feels really good. So, I mean, if you stick with that stuff, I think you won't go wrong. If
Yeah.
if you stick with doing that sort of stuff, I think you'd be fine. And if you don't let some of your personal life spill over too much into,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about posting pictures of your dog and all that stuff. That's great, right? I'm just saying that in general, there's some things that I think, um, maybe because I'm old fashioned, I'm old, that, you just keep out of social media. That's not
No,
really
totally.
the
We're on the
forum
same
for
page
it.
there.
So, but you do such a great job of that. You're so well respected in the community. You're so admired, and people look up to you. And you're just one of those solid individuals that everybody
Oh, I
likes.
think you could probably agree with this. I'm glad I didn't get into this till I was almost 40 because I'm in a good place. I'm there mentally. I'm there. If I was like 18, I would just be cursing people out. Just talking about people's moms. I'd be done. I'd be crashing out on Twitter.
Yeah, you come off as very mature
Yeah.
and very, very like I think a person like a cerebral person. And yeah, there's a certain amount of I think wisdom that comes with the grays and you kind of know, oh yeah, I would have done that 10 years ago, but I ain't doing that now, right? And that's
But I mean, if I was like 19 and I got a 1 star, I would definitely attack the person. Which is like the absolute quickest way to get killed in this community.
yeah, exactly. And that's a learning pro. And it's things that you don't like until you've been around the community. You learn like okay, reviewers are for the people who wrote them. They're not for the authors. That's a hard concept to get your head around at first, I think.
Yeah.
because like you said, you read your reviews. I read all mine, good or bad, and I maybe that's something I know I should do, and maybe that's because I'm not so popular that I've got to the point where they don't mean anything to me. I don't think I'll ever get there. To be honest with you, I
I
can't
can't
even
even imagine that state of mind.
I cannot imagine I'll get to the point where I don't care about a really good review or a really bad review. I
Yeah.
don't think that I ever will. And it doesn't, and even as I think bias is growing slowly, incrementally, I don't think, yeah, I can't see if I had three times the reviews, I would still, yeah, I would still care. And maybe that's, part of being an indie for some of us,
Yeah.
that, it's very personal because we're accessible. We're the people that, you email us or you call us, hey, can you come to my podcast? Yeah, sure, I'll be there. Like, there's no gauntlet to go through. We're very, and our successes or our failures tend to play out a bit more, I think, as an indie, with than trad. And I'm not dissing or bashing my trad fans at all, or
No,
how they
no,
publish
absolutely not.
I'm just saying that it is a different business, right? Frankly, it's a different business, and but yeah, I think I still, and part of it too is like, although I don't, and you correct me if I'm wrong, like I write the book I want to write the way I want to write it, but I'm not tone deaf to feedback either. Is that how you
No,
feel
no, that's
about?
that's why I'm very open about that. Like, I mentioned this earlier, but in my books 2 and 3, I kind of make fun of the mistakes I made in the first book, and I think that kind of takes. I think when you're self aware, you can really cut yourself some slack. Because listen, a lot of it's true. So I mean, like, I don't know if Bill is still here. Willow Rath. He I wrote the guy sheaths a pole arm, and it doesn't work that you can't sheath a pole arm.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, what does that even mean?" I'm like, I don't know. So you gotta just don't be defensive. Just
Yeah.
learn from the pain and do better.
But that shows me. It says great chat, gents. Willow Wraith Plus. He's taken off. It's a great chat, gents. Hope you all have a great weekend. Cheers. Thanks so much for coming out, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like I feel like that takes a high level of emotional intelligence. That like I really have to commend you for that. I think it takes a high level of emotional intelligence and maturity to laugh at yourself and to be able to look at errors and make fun of them in a way that, like, I just think that's really mentally, emotionally,
Well,
psychologically mature and productive.
sometimes you are objectively 100% wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I had a typo in my first book, unfazed. The correct way to spell it is with an F, unfazed. And all 3 times I wrote it, I wrote PH, so unfazed PH. And I had a person knock a review down because I did that. And I was like, that's not wrong. So I Googled the word unfazed PH, and the literal definition is incorrect spelling of unfazed. So I was like, all right, that's totally about me then. You gotta just take it.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, like that speaks to your maturity, and your level of emotional intelligence, and those are all things that you guys. I always say like writers are some of the most amazing people, artists in general, because those are things that I see from them, like more on display. Because of course, to actually put a book out there and have to take criticism, have people going, "This is great, bad, or indifferent,"
Yeah.
based on my subjective opinion, takes courage, frankly, right? Take courage to put that baby out there in the world and go, okay, some people are going to say good things, some people are going to say bad things, but I still want to write this thing and put it out there. I can keep it on my shelf and only have myself love it, or my dog, or my spouse, or my parents, but I'm putting this thing out there,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have other people, rip it apart potentially. But still, the people that like it, it's gonna mean something, right? The people that it touches, when you get those reviews or those emails, you know what, that really spoke to me, or what you did really, like those are that's like gold, right?
Yeah. And I
So
mean, it is that first when you put your first book out there and it has literally 0 ratings, 0 reviews. That is such a scary, vulnerable position.
yes,
Because I
yes,
mean, the averages are so volatile. I mean,
yeah, it
but
is.
like I have a bunch. I have pretty much. I have close to 100 on my first book now, so I don't care. You rate it whatever. The
Yeah,
number's not moving, so
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah. And you know what? At the end of the day, but it is it takes a definitely artists. There's a courage that comes with doing that, and kudos to you. And listen, man, congratulations on all the success. I know it's only going to
Same to you.
continue. So I don't know if I've kept you for a while. I don't want. I want to be. I know you've been so generous with your time. I do want to give you an opportunity, though, as we're signing off, just to let people know where they can buy your amazing books. Where you lurk on social media, where people can find you. And things like that.
All right, I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, and I have a 5 tree page that has a link to every one of my books at every one of the venues. I strongly recommend you buy all of them because you'll definitely be better off.
Well, I can tell you, and again, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much
This is awesome. It
for
doesn't feel like
sending
an hour and a
me.
half. I mean,
No, it doesn't. I know we can talk for hours, but I know it.
you've been talking. You've literally been talking for hours. So.
That's all good, man. It's a labor of love. Believe me, I
Yeah.
get to talk to people like you. And just quickly, I'm saying lots of fun. Thanks, PL10. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Al.
everyone. I didn't see any comments, but I will try to rewatch this. So thanks everyone who showed up.
Yeah, thank you everyone who's showed up in the chat. Everyone who's going to watch the replay. You're what makes this type of long form content amazing. And thanks, first and foremost, to my wonderful guest, Timothy Wolf. I'm really privileged to have him come on. So this is a blast. Quickly, no, this has been absolutely great. Quickly for me, PL Stewart. PLStewart.com is where you learn about books. Before we go blog, we're assistant editor, reviews. My YouTube channel takes like 6 elemental interviews where I interview wonderful people like Timothy in the community, my partner Taylor from to the Pages, Page Chewing, where we also do interviews there. And again, for me, the books, book 5, The Pack of Wolves, is coming out in April, ish. So hopefully we'll see it soon, April, May ish. I want to be careful about giving a release date, but hopefully very soon. And I'm on track for publishing a book a year. I'm trying to beat with my idol GRM that he fell off. So hopefully I'll continue to try to working on the 6th book, A Black Dragon on Red, as we speak. So hopefully I'll be on track for 2027 finishing off in the story. So yeah, that was it. Again, thanks so much, Shane, Eddie, everybody else that came out. This has been awesome, but it's all about the guest, and that's what makes it awesome. But I had a fabulous guest in Timothy. So everybody,